Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's show, we're going to be looking at some CSX coal trains that I was able to track down this Labor Day, as well as some stuff on the NS and FEC trackage here in Jacksonville. But before we get started, and due to some very recent events in our very crooked world, I'd like to start off with a word of encouragement. In John chapter 16, verse 33, Jesus says, "I have told you all of these things so that you may find peace in me. Here on earth you will have trials and sorrows, but do not fear, for I have overcome the world." And that's exactly right. And it's important to remember and have that peace no matter if we're going through school, jobs, or even in this fun hobby. So let's get into this fun hobby with a drive into downtown Jax.
Happy Labor Day, folks. We're back on the highway ever, I-95, and we're going towards Jacksonville. The party is really down in Tampa, but we're gonna try to see what we can find here today. Probably we'll see some of the boys out there too. Got a couple of goodies that I know of so far, but first objective is getting some fall decorations for the dorm room. And then I'll probably swing into Dinsmore or something for an approaching coal train that I think just cleared Folkestone. So things are looking good. We'll see what we get.
Things are looking good. Actually, so good that I would barely make it over the St. Johns River before hearing my first train of the day on the scanner. And pulling into Prudential Drive on the south side of the bridge at San Marco, that train would appear in just a few moments. This is Y102, a yard job out of Duval Ramp to the FEC, with the lovely SD40-2, number 8066, leading today's train back north. Jacksonville currently has a handful of these working with the Dash 3 rebuilt variants, but for randomly coming across this train just after 1 p.m. this day, I'd take what I can get. I think most railroaders will agree with me that these SD40s are some of the coolest engines to shoot nowadays, still cooking after about 50 years in service. Y102 is still a novel catch for me, as some days, as we'll soon see, he carries quite a lot of Tropicana traffic for the FEC and the plant down in Fort Pierce, but also for these newly added Amazon trailers. Piggyback loads are rarely seen on CSX around here, but they're slowly becoming a more common sight, as this cut will soon become train I-190 out of Moncrief Yard to BNSF at Birmingham. It's a new train that CSX is testing as part of its cross-country joint intermodal service design with BNSF, which hopefully we'll be able to cover soon. Alas, the I-190 out of Jax and I-189 out of Birmingham are as needed and can run anytime they need. With about a mile of intermodal traffic from Moncrief Yard today, Y102 would get permission into the yard as he came up on Beaver Street, where he'll drop almost all of his train before taking any straggler traffic back to Duval Ramp via Dinsmore, where 102's day will end. From San Marco, I drive locally past the yard, making it up to Soutel, an ABS signal on the A line north of the Amtrak station, and south of Dinsmore, located about right in the middle of the two. I'd be here on word of an L795 on his way south, who takes this A line into Jacksonville, today passing that aforementioned coal train at Callahan for whatever reason. I'd figure out soon that an empty shipment of coal would be fixing to depart out of West Jax this afternoon, and because of how CSX is utilizing that yard right now, there'd only be space for one train today, so that southbound, identified now as a CO15, would be dead in the water until his counterpart train would clear the way for him. For now, it's L795's turn, with a sizable train from Waycross to Moncrief Yard today, carrying any type of merchandise that Jacksonville ordered behind the head end.
795 Vance approach Soutel, track 1 south.
From Soutel, it would be a mad dash to Beaver Street, as I heard NS 287 crossing Jack's Bridge and heading back to Simpson Yard, today with an SD40-2 liter. So with just moments to spare, I'd get my second SD40 liter of the day, this one branded as a thoroughbred, with traffic from the FEC. From the Beaver Street overpass here, you can get a good idea of the track layout as 3 subdivisions and 3 railroads converge. Looking south, the 2 mainline tracks, which this NS 287 is crossing over, are the tracks to FEC, which actually become the FEC at the pair of signals under the I-95 overpass back there, a control point called South TY. To the right is one of the many small yards here, this one currently being used for a couple cuts of FEC cars as storage. To the right of that are the signals at Beaver Street, as the CSX A line bends south towards the St. John's, becoming the Sanford sub about 6 miles south of our post. The 2 tracks branching from track 1 here are the legs of the Honeymoon Y, which at the stem becomes the SP line into Baldwin, with the southern leg called Seminole Connection, because of the power plant that it provides access to in Palatka. .287 would creep towards Simpson Yard, giving us plenty of time to get ahead of him again by the southern access point of said yard, just to see him come to a stop. A yard switcher would be using the track that 287 was on, and without a crossover anywhere near here, you just have to wait for that to clear before getting permission in. I had already gotten my photos of this train, so instead of waiting here, I'd swing around the block to the A line at Moncrief Road. Looking south from this A637 milepost, we can see those signals at Soutel where we were earlier, and looking north, we can vaguely see the signals at Dinsmore, where a medium approach would be lit for something on track 1 to enter Duval Yard via the south leg of the Dinsmore Y. In just a few moments, that train would appear in the shape of that Y102 again from earlier, once again seen with his SD40-2 liter after dropping about 98% of his train at Moncrief, now with permission into Duval with 230 feet of intermodal for the ramp.
Well, here's something you don't see every day. I'm leaving Moncrief. Look at that.
You definitely don't see this every day, unless you drive up here every day, which is not the case for me. Hence this quick stop to see this old Seaboard trailer in some of the best condition I've ever seen one of these in, considering that logo is now well over 60 years old. A quick drive back to Soutel, and looking north, a headlight would appear in the form of that CO15. He gets signals south from Callahan, but would have to stop again at Dinsmore to make room for that Y102 to enter the yard, finally getting signals towards Moncrief for now, or so I thought. As CO15 would crawl its way towards us, I'd hear a train calling signals at the Jacksonville Amtrak station just 2 miles to our south, hence the green signals on track 2. It would be the counterpart to this CO15 called EO15, E for empty, and that it is, heading back north to the mines from Palatka's Seminole Power Plant in Botswick. As EO15 passed, CO15 would creep up right beside him and stop here at Soutel, again for reasons beyond me. The northbound's quick pace would soon clear him from the scene, revealing CO15's 3 engines, that being an EMD ST70 Mace flanked by 2 GE wide caps.
Alright, so that was EO15 and CO15 meeting, if you will, right there at Soutel. CO15 came to a stop. I'm not sure why. Dispatcher said it's going to be a little bit. So we're heading up to Dinsmore, which is just a couple miles up the line, as IO25 is coming south, and that's how he enters Duval Ramp. So we're going to head up there and see him coming into the yard.
Alright, so now that we're at Dinsmore, everything kind of makes sense. CO15 has been sitting here at Dinsmore for the past 2 hours or so, but they moved him down to Soutel because they're on track 1. They would be blocking IO25's route into Duval Ramp if they sat here. So they moved him down to Soutel because Moncrief and West Jacks is still not ready for them. So here comes IO25, he's right around the corner, now with clear trackage into the yard.
With CO15's bottom end now well beyond the switch at Dinsmore, the dispatcher could line it into the yard, giving the approaching IO-25 a medium approach into the ramp, soon appearing over the horizon of tall pine forests that make up much of the vegetation around here.
25 medium approach, 10 small. 30, 40. Drop.
Hailing from Bedford Park, Illinois, on the outskirts of Chicago, IO-25 is the hottest and highest priority train on this southern end of CSX's system, running usually with upwards of 10,000 feet of train and a casual 3 engines in the mix. This train is a get-you-fired train, which means, for one, it'll never be understaffed or underpowered and rarely delayed. It'd be none of the above today, arriving right on time at 4 p.m. behind the 12,000-plus combined horsepower of 3 more GEs. Since IO-25 has to slow once he enters the yard limits at the ramp, it takes him quite a while to get into there, especially if the conductor needs to hop off and throw a switch or two for 25 to get lined into the correct track, which would be the case today, and the reason why drivers at this Trout River Road crossing would have to wait 21 minutes to continue on their way as 25 finally clears. From Dinsmore, I'd have some time to spare prior to the next moves, so I'd visit Jacksonville's Amtrak station for exploration's sake. Opened on January 4th, 1974, Amtrak began operations here that same day, pulling the Grand Jacksonville Terminal in downtown, now the Prime Osborne Convention Center, out of service. While this station is anything but interesting compared to the old downtown terminal, Amtrak does maintain this building as one of the busiest and most traveled stations in the South, seeing 4 trains daily and terminating Amtrak's thruway bus services to Ocala and Gainesville. In 2024, it served 75,000 passengers, which is a higher number than previous years and a good sign, hopefully for ridership in the near future. The next train to serve here is Amtrak 98, who'd be coming up on the south side of town as I'd skip down to Dennis Street from here, lined into town with this medium approach medium aspect as he navigates the curve here towards Duke's Crossing, Beaver Street, and the end of the day for this crew at the station. A little ways up the curve here at Dennis Street, and you can get a really good look again at the track layout here, and into Conrad Yelvington's distribution center, where their GP30 is currently down for a repaint, which I guess we'd be interrupting. To the north are the signals at Duke's Crossing and Beaver Street, with the connection track to the FEC and skyline of Jacks behind us. We'd stick around here as we heard of a CO40 departing West Jacks once Amtrak 98 was by, and now that he was, the dispatcher would line him onto the Sanford side, utilizing that seminal connection to swing south from the east-west SP line.
That said, how soon are you going to be pulling? Looks like 52's going to knock down Bostwick in about 5 minutes or less. Probably in about 2 minutes or less. So, how soon are you going to get out there to St. John's? So, need to make you to Yukon if possible. Otherwise, you're going to meet him there at St. John's. So.
Okay, we're pulling right now.
If anything, we'll meet them at St. John's. And that's a minimum. I'm trying to get you down to Yukon. So you think you can make it down there or no? I'm going to say St. John's just to be safe. Okay. I don't know where you're at in the ramp over here at the Brickyard, so all right, be signal indication. So here we go. Come on, and I'll let the other side know you're coming over. All right, appreciate it.
As many of you know, CO40 is usually an S-Line customer, but since today is Labor Day and a holiday weekend, Sunrail would have the weekday off, which would open up the A-Line for this guy, as soon as one last Amtrak was out of the way. Peeking around CO40's long string of loads, we can see a medium advance approach signal lighting up track 2 as that northbound Amtrak slowly approaches from the south. After about 8 minutes, CO40 would finally clear us here at Duke's, so we'd follow him south to St. John's and the end of the double track, where we knew he'd have to stop for Amtrak 52, the northbound auto train. From Dennis Street, it's actually fairly easy to get there, as we briefly hop on to I-10 to access Roosevelt Boulevard, which parallels the A-Line there with barely any traffic lights. Pulling into St. John's, CO40 would be right behind, also stopping here, hence the red signal, and the switch thrown for track 2 for the meet with 52. At the crossing, history still resides in the form of an old ACL-style milepost and a circular guardrail for the crossing gates here, which is actually just an old steam engine's wheel rim installed decades ago to protect the crossing from any drivers who may find themselves a couple feet too far off the road. In a few minutes, the sun would get covered by the thick cloud coverage that this September evening would bring our way, as Amtrak 52, the northbound auto train, rolls through, with 2 blue garbage cans up front, leading America's longest passenger train. We'd promptly head south after 52 to beat the traffic that would build from his passing and the immediate departure of that CO40. Crossing the Ortega River or McGirt's Creek to the railroad, we'd soon find ourselves just across the road to NAS Jax, one of the largest, if not the largest, Navy base in the state of Florida, which coincidentally is located just a stone throw away from the A-Line and Yukon Siding, the first on this Sanford sub south of Jacksonville. A high green would display for CO40 just south of the defect detector here, which he'd soon see and adhere to as the crew notches up with clear track to Orlando.
Equipment defect detector. Milepost 652 point.
Yukon is classic Atlantic coastline, with the ACL's notable no right turn crossing signals still in place at many of the crossings around here. Prototypes like the ones in the Bone Valley at Mulberry, downtown Palmetto, and many other ACL-served towns, these old workers have probably seen ACL passenger trains from the 1950s, now tripped on presently by 6 daily Amtraks, a local, and a few mainline freights, like this CO40 and other shuttle traffic right behind.
Equipment defect detector. Milepost 652.4. No defects. No defects. Total axle 446. End of transmission.
Peering south at the signals at North End Yukon again, a white restricting signal would abruptly illuminate for another southbound, who'd get a yellow approach signal by the time the crew and I would move a crossing down to Norman Street. As CO40 speedily gets out of sight, the signal would finally upgrade to a high green for R636, another coal train, and one that we've actually already seen today in the likes of CO15, now recrewed at West Jax and heading down the Sanford sub only 10 minutes behind CO40.
Signal indication, no defects on the tractive motors. to the Yukon, so as soon as he clears, he'll go and you'll go. Over.
Right, I'll drag my feet and follow that sheet for you.
All right, thank you. Here we go. Dispatcher, Jacksonville.
Like I mentioned, this R636 is that same CO15 that we saw earlier at Soutel, who once West Jacks was ready, parked there for a couple hours and was recrewed, making it this R636, which is the local symbol for this Jacksonville crew to take the train down to Seminole Electric's power plant in Palatka at Botswick. Of note on these Seminole coal trains are their black hoppers, known as Bethgon coal porters, which are different than the normal RDLs we see on Orlando coal trains. The RDLs are rapid discharge cars, which unload their load from chutes or bays in the bottom of the car, while these Bethgons are unloaded via rotary dumper, which is what Palatka uses to dump multiple of these trains each week.
No defects. No defects. Total axle 462. End of transmission.
R636 would take just a few minutes to clear our post here at Yukon, which would send me home for some dinner and a good night's rest before class the next day. For an afternoon up here though, we did very well today, making for quite the fun and eventful Labor Day. I hope all of you enjoyed this one as much as I enjoyed making it. But until we meet again sometime soon, this is Christian from Multicolor Films, end of transmission.